This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right. There he is.
All right.
How you feeling, my man? You feeling good?
Yeah, man, I'm great. How's everything on your side of the mic?
Let me see. On my side of the mic, it is a beautiful thing out here watching what you guys are doing every single night, and I think I'm happy for you. I'm happy for Moeller. I'm happy for Goldie. I'm happy for a lot of the people that have been hanging around this team for a long time. And obviously the owners have made such an incredible difference. That's the reason why we're talking about this team the way we are, is because of Viola and Sifu. But for you personally, it's got to be a lot of fun, man, because the team is becoming relevant locally. You're feeling that people more and more are getting on the bandwagon, which is what we kind of expected, that it was going to take a little while. But this has got to be a satisfying feeling for you to go from, you know, the team that people don't give enough attention to all of a sudden maybe giving them the respect of being the best team in town.
Yeah, I mean, look, anybody that's familiar with South Florida knew that this is what it was going to take to get to that level, that it wasn't just going to be one good season or making the playoffs here or there. It was going to have to be some sustained success. You're going to have to convince the fans down here that there's a reason to drive up to Broward County, all the way out west by the Sawgrass, and go to some hockey games, and they've done that. This is the first time in franchise history they've made the playoffs 3 years in a row, and this year they've really rounded a corner. They're, right now they're leading the Eastern Conference. They got a nice little lead for the entire conference. They've got a huge lead for the division. I think it's 8 points on Toronto and 11 points on Tampa with the same amount of games played. And, they're a wagon right now. They're setting records. They're scoring like crazy, scoring like this league hasn't seen a team do since the 90s. So it's, again, it's awesome to see. It's great to see that the region is embracing the team, that they're showing up more.
Finally.
The playoff tickets the pre-sale went really fast. It's a deserving thing, but at the same time, it's really awesome to see that everybody's jumping on board.
Yeah, it's so cool to see the way the buzz is growing like it was in the mid 90s, but this is obviously something completely sustainable and completely different than what we saw in the 90s, where we knew that team really didn't have much of a future. This one is just sick. All right, so the comebacks, my brother. I mean, I talked about this on a Saturday show a couple weeks ago, that you never feel like you're out of a game with the Panthers. And in the last couple of weeks, 4 and 5 goal deficits have been overcome, and won both, by the way, which, let's also talk about that, because a lot of times you see teams will come back to tie, but then kind of run out of gas and not finish it off, which I've even seen the Panthers do that in the past. This team, dude, it is relentless, and it's never out of a game. Where the hell does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, this team is just so deep, Orlando, that they just can come at you in waves. And they're kind of like a diesel engine, I guess. It takes a little bit for them to get warmed up, but once they get going, they can run for days. And I mean, you talk about a team running out of gas. This team does not run out of gas. This team, they've got gas to go 3 games, 4 games in a row, scoring all these goals. It's pretty remarkable to see. It's funny because, like, speaking to, had Andrew Burnett and speaking to some of the players in the last couple of days, obviously they're quick to point out, like, yeah, we don't want to put ourselves in this situation. We don't want to keep falling behind like this. And that's really the first place they go with it. But yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. I mean, we've seen the comeback Cats over the last couple of seasons. We've seen them come back, down 4-1, down 3-1. And it's, it's cool. It's nice that they're never out of a game. What they've done in the last week, down by 4 goals, coming back twice, down by 4 goals in the third period in New Jersey, down by 4 goals to one of the best teams in the league right now, Toronto, who's playing amazing, who had just dismantled Tampa Bay, who's been playing their best hockey of the season, to come back on them down 5-1 in the second period. I mean, it's not a situation you want to put yourself in, but to be able to overcome those kind of deficits, to be able to just say, yeah, we played like shit for the first period or whatever, but no big deal. We've got this ridiculously deep team with players on the third line who would be skating on the first line on most teams in the league. It's just unbelievable what they're doing. And again, just kind of back to your first point, it's something that fans down here have just got to be like, tongues hanging out of their mouths, like, oh my God, this is really our team.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Now, we always looked at Hubie as one hell of a player, but we always looked at Barkov as a top 10, top 20 player in the league, one of the great players in the league. Well, Barkov was really happy for Hubie in breaking his record. And Hubie has had an MVP season this year, and he probably should win the team's MVP. Did this season put Jonathan Huberdeau at the level of Alexander Barkov? Because we never really looked at them equally. We always looked at Barkov as the superior player. But this year, things that Hubie did, even when Barkov was out and taking over and really leading, I just wonder how you view them, and are they on equal footing now, or has the gap closed considerably and it's a 1A, 1B? How do you view those two guys and the season that Hubie's had to put himself in that plateau?
I think it's they're very different players, so I don't think it's fair to like say one is better than the other. I think it's amazing that they're both.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying has he become like Barkov is the franchise player, and we
Yeah.
looked at Hubie like he's an all-star player. Okay, is Hubie now a franchise player just like Barkov? Maybe I put it that way.
I think definitely they're both franchise guys. I mean, with Barkov, we've seen maybe he developed a little bit sooner than Huberdeau. He's a little bit of a bigger guy. Huberdeau has put a lot more emphasis the last couple of years in building up his body and building up that strength and that muscle so he could win a lot of those one-on-one battles, so he could be more of a well-rounded player. Whereas Barkov, he's always been this big, tough puck possession guy. Just very special. But yeah, I think the Panthers, they really have three franchise players right now. If you throw Aaron Ekblad into the mix, because he's also absolutely a franchise type guy. But I mean, one thing that's kind of helped Jonathan Huberdeau this year, you remember Sasha Barkov, he's played, I think, 13 less games than Jonathan Huberdeau this year. So there was an opportunity for Hubie really to kind of step into the light on his own a little bit and carry the team. And he's done that.
But he's never done that. That's my point, that even if Barkov missed any games, it wasn't like Hubie he never played like this, that he took over, bro. Like like you could tell the leadership part of him was really important to him. There was a level of maturity that you can see from the television. I'm not in the locker room with him or at practice like you are, and you have way more insight, but just from afar as a fan, it just seemed like Hubie took it upon himself to say, hey man, I need to do more. I need to be more. And he has been, dude. That's why I look at him and I say, yeah, he's franchise material now. I looked at him as an all-star. Now I look at him like franchise material.
I think last season was a big deal for Huberdeau in terms of his maturation as a player. I think he went through some off the ice things as a man. He went through, what the team went through last season with that, a great year, going to the playoffs with expectations, playing that ridiculous series against Tampa where maybe they were out-muscled a little bit, maybe opened some eyes, and then he goes into the offseason and he puts in a ton of work, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well, building up his body, building up his conditioning. And I think we're seeing kind of the results of all that this year, where Huberdeau, he was always, as you said, he was always this great, great player. But now he's turned another corner and he's gone into like this elite level of player that you're hoping to get out of him, a top 3 pick. Right. We've seen Barkov turn that corner over the last couple of years, but now Jonathan Huberdeau has as well. And remember, these guys are still in their mid-20s. Oh, well, they've been around, it seems like forever. They're still super young and they're still coming into their own. So, it's all kind of falling in line with where they should be. But yeah, you're absolutely right in that while Barkov had been already kind of arrived at that elite level, and he had graduated from being considered one of the more underrated players. He was more recognized. Now he won a Selke trophy. I think Jonathan Huberdeau now has joined him, and now the Panthers have an elite, very legitimate 1-2 punch on their forward ranks. And we've seen the results this year.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. That's why I asked you, because to me, that's where he's really elevated them. All right, couple more before I let you go. Pacing them. And, we talked to George a couple days ago, and obviously they've had such a dominant season and they're going to end up locking in, the number 1 spot and all of that. But with so many games left, and you're already at a franchise record 104 points. How does the head coach walk the fine line of also protecting your players, pacing them, and maybe giving them a little rest before you get into the playoffs? Because George was talking about how they still have to keep their edge going into it, so you don't want to lay off too much. So how do you balance that going into the end of the season?
Well, I think kind of what we were just talking about with these come from behind victories and these situations that they put themselves in that they've got to dig themselves out. I think that right there is kind of the starting point into keeping that focus and keeping your eye on a prize as you get towards the end of the season. Because, yeah, the playoff spot is locked up already. They've got a pretty healthy lead in both the conference and the division that they want to keep. And that's part of the motivation. But I think also they're not where they want to be in terms of how they're playing. And it's a great thing because they're still playing like an amazing team, but they're not putting full 60-minute games together yet. And they want to get to that point when the playoffs get here. They don't want to be falling behind.
Wait a minute. I think they're putting in the 60 minutes. I don't think
you can't fall behind 4-1 and 5-2 and say that you're putting in a full 60-minute effort.
I don't. Well, it's 82 games. You're not going to play one nothing games all the way through. What I don't believe is Bobrovsky is the guy that's putting in the 60 minutes on a consistent basis. That was going to be my final question to all of that, and we can just get into it now. That's my concern, and that's been your concern for a while since I saw that tweet of yours, of Bob allowing a greasy goal every once in a while and all that kind of stuff. And that, to me, that would be my concern going into the playoffs. It's not as much a concern as it has been in the past because the Panthers can score like I've never seen in hockey. So it's sick, their offense. So it makes it a lot easier on the goalie. But that's my concern right there is when do I get to see the Bob that's a badass on a consistent basis?
I don't know if that day is going to come, unfortunately, Orlando. We've been talking about it for 3 years now. I don't think that the badass Vezina Bob that they signed to this, $10 million a year contract, I don't think they're ever going to get that on a consistent basis. You might get games like that, like you saw last week against Chicago, where he looks lights out, 37 saves, he's making big saves, he's making easy saves, he's doing it all. And then his next 2 starts, he gets pulled. So I think that's just kind of like what they're going to get from Bob. I know that behind the scenes, they're very pro Bob. That's their guy. Brunette said as much today that, he even kind of sheltered Bob a little bit from the last couple of games saying, and granted, he's been hung out to dry a little bit. He's also given up some soft goals. You want to see your starting goalie come up with some of those tough saves that, granted, you're going to give him the benefit of the doubt or whatever, that he doesn't give up, that he lets in a tough goal, give up a breakaway, give up a 2-on-1 down low. But you're playing like an Ottawa team where Anton Forsberg is making these huge saves. And it's like, why is Bob getting outplayed by a guy who's on, one of the worst teams in the league? And it's something that we've seen a lot this year where Bob gets outplayed by the other goalie, but the Panthers are such an offensive juggernaut that they make up for it. And they're winning games 5-3 and they're winning games 6-4. But yeah, I'm just as concerned as you are, Orlando. I don't know if our concern is shared behind the scenes with the Panthers coaching staff. From everything that I've been told, from digging around with sources, that they're very pro Bob. They're happy with Bob.
But are they pro Bob because they got to stay on that side because mentally you don't want to get in the public eye and say, yeah, well, we're a little concerned about Bobrovsky, and then he hears that. So is that really more for show than is it really that, because here's my follow-up to all of that then. With all of these games that are left, which is what, about 11 games, I believe, right?
12 games left.
12 games left. So with 12 games left, and we all have to be honest with ourselves. And if there's a group of individuals that are brutally honest with themselves, are hockey people. So whatever they're playing at public, behind the scenes, they're super honest with themselves about this. None of us can feel that Bob was the Bob of the Predators 4 years ago against Tampa Bay. Sorry, none of us feel like that. So then, with the 12 games left, why not put Knight out there even more and try to roll and see if this kid actually does a little bit more and maybe makes you feel a little bit more secure going into the postseason? Or is it too late to do that? And we've got to go with the direction of, well, we'll start Bob. If he's playing well, we'll keep him between the pipes. If he's not, we'll have a quick hook and we'll bring in the kid. How do you handle it?
I think over the last 12 games that you'll see Knight probably start 4 or 5 of them. They're going to want to get Bob out there, but as much as we've talked about it, I think that Bob is their guy. I've been poking around recently, just trying to get a feel for like what you're talking about, the behind the scenes. Because obviously, talking to the media, it's clear that they're going to be very supportive of Bob. Maybe a little too much, in my opinion. I think you can be a little bit honest that he's been giving up some weak goals, some demoralizing goals that are very frustrating. But nobody's going to throw their goalie under the bus, and like, I'm fine with that. I'm good with honesty too, but at the end of the day, if that's what they feel is going to be healthier for Bob, then fine. But from what I've gathered, and I'm going to continue to poke around as we get closer to the playoffs, they're just as pro Bob behind the scenes as they are to us. You take that for what it's worth. Personally, I would like to see more of Spencer Knight. I think he's more reliable. I'm a little bit more comfortable with him at this point, but we're on this side of the mic. They're on that side of the glass, and they're the ones making the decisions. And everything from what they've said to us, in the media to what I'm hearing behind the scenes, it all sounds like Sergei Bobrovsky's going to be the guy when the playoffs start. Now, that was the case last year too. Bob was the guy when the playoffs started, and they ended up starting 3 goalies in 6 games, and it was a total shit show. And that cannot happen again. If they're going to go with Bob, it's got to be Bob. They can't go Bob Knight. Like, no, it's not going to work. If you're in this for a Stanley Cup.
Right.
The only team I can think of, in recent history that tried a goalie tandem in the playoffs was like when Philly did it back in the 90s, the year that they played the year after the Panthers beat them when they went to the final, and they started 2 goalies all the way, and it got them to the final, and then they got swept. So I think even that will only get you so far. But I mean, at the end of the day, Orlando, I think what we're seeing from Bob is what we're going to have to hope for the playoffs, that we get more games like Chicago and less games like, whatever it was, Buffalo, and then the other night against Toronto. But that, for me, that's the big question mark, because this team, forwards, defense, depth, coaching, they're hitting all the marks right now.
Oh, yeah.
The only question for me heading into the playoffs is going to be, is the goaltending going to be strong enough to take them all the way to the finish line?
I'm with you there. All right. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Dwork. Catch his podcast, man. Chirping the Cats podcast. And, of course, you can catch his work at WPLG and twice a week here. Locking it down with our LennyLocksmith.com Florida Panthers segment. David, thank you as always, my brother. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man. Be well. Tell Sean I said hi. He needs to be on that Dolphins O-line.
You got it. There you go. All right, Sean. Man that O-line. And again, you're locked out of your home, your car. Lenny Locksmith, 561-284-5090. 24-hour locksmith service, house or car locks, residential, commercial, car locks, car key replacement, even with programming. They do it all, and all throughout South Florida. So anywhere in South Florida, LennyLocksmith.com. That's your lockdown segment.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.